Shakora Med, and he is the founder and CEO of a small business called V-Empower Inc., which specializes in information technology. So Shakora Med led the company officially to be ranked as #1 fastest growing private company in Maryland, according to the Deloitte in 2007. Since then, he has conceptualized, designed, developed, maintained, and enhanced 23 products in the last 14 years and sold 5 of them successfully. I'd like to welcome him to the stage right now. Hi. The second person on our panel today is Trisha Sakuja. She manages 2 teams of freelance writers for 2 different publications, one being Brown Girl Magazine, where she is the managing editor, and the second being India.com, which you could see on most of your tables right now, where she is the content manager. She is also a South Asian Journalists Association board member, so one of my colleagues as well. Welcome to the stage, Trisha Sakuja. So let's begin. So when thinking about social media, we can kind of think that this is a new way of advertising and how we're going to really get our names out there digitally. We can reach such a greater audience by using all these different platforms. So the first question that I want to ask both of you is, which social media platforms do you use currently, and which one brings in the most engagement for you? What works for your brands?
I guess, let me ask the audience, how many of you on social network, on Facebook, if you could just raise a hand quickly? Okay, great, very active. How many of you on LinkedIn? Quite a bit, okay, good, excellent. Well, you know, it's social media, every network has its advantages and disadvantages. I normally, some of our products which are political in nature, we use a lot of Facebook because I think Facebook is much effective there. But in some situations, if it's a very specific product we're building or guiding some of our clients in terms of the product is very much has niche, then we use LinkedIn. I think generally LinkedIn is more effective in terms of very specific, if you have a product in technology or engineering or medicine, that's where we normally advise, and that's what I do. And in social networks, I think one of the important things, as we all know, that relationship is two-way street, and also you can strengthen your relationship by giving more and taking less. So some people have this notion that if you go on social network, I can establish an account, invite people, that's the first step. But the second part is, in order for you to be more effective, you have to take a little bit of time, pay attention to the audience, and I generally spend at least one day a month just analyzing who are on my Facebook, who is on LinkedIn, and what are they doing. So I think that's a crucial part, because you want to be able to engage them, ask them, listen to them, while listening, find opportunities to push your products, your service.
Hi, everybody. Asif, thank you so much for inviting us here. We really appreciate it. So I'm going to be speaking more on the behalf of the work I've done at browngirlmagazine.com and just a little bit about India.com. At Brown Girl, because we are an online publication that focuses on South Asian women living in the diaspora, it's really important that what we put on social media is our message on a daily basis, regardless of what we're posting. So we have to be very critical of our message. We do use Facebook the most, but of course we do concentrate on Twitter and Instagram just as much. And we do have other smaller platforms that we're growing, such as Medium.com or such as Tumblr.com, Pinterest, but our main big focuses are Facebook, Twitter, and then Instagram. And I really do think that Facebook is probably the most effective in terms of generating not only brand visibility, but also traffic that you can depend on. So there's not one day where we don't open up the back end of the website and we don't see people coming in from Facebook. So every single day there will be readers and your fans coming in from Facebook. I think it's definitely the most reliable. And Facebook's also made it so easy for you to just put in a little bit of money and get a lot out of it. So you can boost your page, you can boost the page itself. You could boost the post and you can boost the page, or you can even create an ad separate to both of those. So, and it's extremely affordable. We've been able to do it with just $10 at a time and seen good reach. So for Brown Girl, I think it's definitely Facebook.
So Shakur, you spoke a little bit about LinkedIn. Those are great points from both of you, by the way. But you spoke a little bit about LinkedIn. So using LinkedIn as a social media tool, as a branding tool, as something for content to use to get their message out there, you know, what's the strategy behind that with getting your professional network involved in what you're doing and keeping that engagement going via that platform?
I guess, can you hear me? That's good. The LinkedIn part is very crucial because the way it works is particularly you need to really understand your network. And what happens is I'm seeing a lot of noise and crowd on LinkedIn lately. I think a couple of years ago, 18 months ago, it was much better. So there's a lot of stuff is happening there. People are just putting irrelevant stuff. I'm very particular about not putting up my family, you know, wedding pictures or whatever on LinkedIn because it's not. Facebook is the better way. So I think if you can analyze your link network and target it, I think sometime even targeted messages within LinkedIn works. And if you could find a way to personalize this, and I think in LinkedIn particularly is good for recruitment, trying to build up some partnership, trying to reach out, and particularly on LinkedIn, you also have to be a premium customer. I think you really can't just go on LinkedIn and expect that a lot of things will happen. So you probably have to invest some money there. And if you're a little bit more, I guess, methodical, it would be very effective. Particularly, I know a lot of people who are in the federal government contracting here and professionals. I think that if you could be methodical, pay attention, be a premium customer, and also engage them, that would be the best part, I think, the LinkedIn part.
To kind of just piggyback off of that question that I just asked you, a lot of the reach that I see on LinkedIn comes through quality content, comes through articles that people are writing. Would you recommend to kind of establish your own credibility so that you can be a voice on that platform, that people will listen to you and then get more involved with what you're doing and what you're saying in your brands? Would you say that writing your own content on LinkedIn is a way to go?
Absolutely. I guess that's the best way because initially I have just began writing. I think I've wrote about 4 posts so far. It really forces me to improve my writing skills. And initially it's a little bit, when you do your first post, it's really hard. It's probably depressing sometimes because you probably wouldn't get many likes or people may not view. But I think if you stay consistent and you're, in terms of understanding I think the other part is also, if I have 5,000 connections and 60% of them are political in nature, I think the chances of them reading on LinkedIn post is not going to be that effective. So you probably have to figure it out. And if you're writing something on a really good product, then you need to make sure that the audience is in that part, and then maybe making some sort of calls to some of my friends to say, hey, can you share it? Can you post it back? So that would work. And I think it's essential because eventually we're moving into a direction that everybody is going to be a brand, like Asif is going to be a brand himself, and everybody, we all have to look at that we are some sort of a brand. May not be as big as India.com or maybe Yahoo or whatever, or maybe Dr. Oz, but to some in your own network, you could be a brand. So I think you need to look from that angle and begin doing some posts, and I think that would be the way to go.
Thank you so much for that. So now moving out of the sphere of the individual and coming more into your brand, and if you're into publishing, your publisher brand. So how do you post on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, Trisha, and not overexhaust your audience with all of the content that you're giving them, and still keep your message consistent every day so that your brand is hitting all of its points, your publishing articles are hitting all of their points, and you're keeping your audience engaged, but you're not losing them? How do you do that on a regular basis?
That's definitely one of my biggest challenges every single day from morning to night is how do we keep our audience engaged on all 3 different platforms. And those are just our top 3. We still concentrate on others, but we do spend the most time on those 3. And I think the best thing that we've been able to do is divide our content so each platform has something different to offer. So for Facebook, it's really essential that all of our stories that we're publishing on a daily basis is posted to Facebook because that's the place where I'm going to get guaranteed traffic. So I make sure that all of the stories we post, there's a small caption. It cannot be very long, maybe 2-3 sentences. Sometimes it's even best to just pick up the best quote from the story and post it as a caption, as a post itself on Facebook with the link. So it engages the audience. It allows them to click on it if they see a fun caption or an engaging caption. And then for Twitter, of course, we do also share stories, but on Twitter, it's a better platform to just engage with your readers and to engage with your fans and to engage with the community. So that's a place where if we want to interview somebody or if I'm looking to maybe partner with somebody, we reach out to them via Twitter, and 99% of the chance of the time, it's a very likely chance that we'll be able to solidify a relationship with them just via Twitter. I've met tons of people through that. So I think Twitter is a better place for engagement with just your fans and users, but of course, still post your stories, keep up with the news, keep up with the hashtags. That's extremely important. So there's tons of hashtags that if you catch it right away, start talking in that hashtag right away because people will start to follow you right away and they will start engaging with you. So, unfortunately, just last night, the earthquake that happened in Nepal, all of a sudden it was trending on Twitter. So just jump right in and, maybe say your well wishes or whatever it may be or break the news, but do it through the hashtag because that's where you're going to get your best engagement. And then for Instagram, that's a completely different platform because people want to go to Instagram just to scroll through and see pictures. They don't necessarily want to read as much, and it's very less likely that they'll actually click because Instagram has still kept their platform very niche. So you can only put one link on Instagram at one time, which is at the very top on your bio. So it's not like Facebook where every single post has a link. On Instagram, it's very constrained. So even if you change your link 4 or 5 times a day on your bio on Instagram, it's not likely you're going to get clicks because people are so busy just scrolling down and looking at pictures. So for Instagram, we do focus more on beauty and lifestyle and entertainment posts. So we do a ton of fun Bollywood posts on Instagram, and they do really, really well for us. We're keeping up with what, Katrina Kaif is doing and what Deepika Padukone is doing in India, and that really attracts the audience. We have a ton of beauty tutorials and fun makeup posts that every South Asian girl loves and wants to know about. So we focus Instagram a lot on just fun beauty posts.
Thank you so much for that. So also to go off the last question I asked you, you explained to a lot of us about what your content strategy sort of is and how you gain insights into those platforms. But how do you manage real-time breaking news every day? Like, how do you keep up with that? On each of those platforms? Because I could think that would be overwhelming. So what's your particular team's strategy in managing breaking news?
Yeah, I think breaking news is extremely touchy. It's it's nerve-wracking at times, just as the earthquake last night. I mean, at Brown Girl, we like to take at least a few hours, maybe even a day before we post anything. So, a good example, when the recent shootings happened at Chapel Hill, that's a breaking news that's it's a different place for us because we focus on the South Asian community living in the diaspora. What had happened in Chapel Hill was not necessarily towards the South Asian community, but it was a very important topic that we wanted to cover because the Muslim community is very, very important to us, whether it be South Asian or not. So that was a breaking news that we took a little bit of time to figure out, hey, are we going to go out there and put this story out there? And are we even going to write stories on the shootings at Chapel Hill, how important it is to us? So as a team, we talk about it, and we realize that this story is, in fact, very important to us for one big reason, and that was the fact that bigger media was not covering the shooting. So in that particular instance, that was the reason why we chose to cover Chapel Hill. But if it was maybe another shooting in another part of the country, maybe we wouldn't have done it. So breaking news is very different for us because we can't necessarily talk about everything. And then sometimes what happens is when we don't talk about big breaking news, sometimes our fans and our readers are like, hey, you guys didn't say anything, you know, we're pissed at you or whatever it may be. Very recent example, maybe you guys have heard Mindy Kaling's brother, the famous actor from the show Mindy Project, her brother had come out and said that, you know, he posed as an African-American man to go into medical school. It was a big story. We didn't necessarily cover it as much. We did a very quick Facebook post with a very generic question at the end, and people automatically were upset that we didn't have a bigger stance on the issue. So breaking news is extremely touchy, and you just have to hope and pray you're doing the right thing every time.
Thank you for that. So the next question is going to be for the both of you. So going back strictly to just social media on its own, how has social media and social integration evolved in your organizations? How has this platforms helped you and elevated you to become better, more noticeable?
I guess it's very challenging in organizations, particularly companies. I think it's much easier to probably integrate for those who are constantly in news making, particularly newspapers and bloggers. They use Facebook and Twitter a whole lot. But I think in our organization, the biggest challenge is I still have to kind of, we're trying to build a brand, and everybody who's working in my company needs to kind of, not just me, who is the face of the company, who's CEO, and the employees needs to be on board as well because they're valuable, they work on projects, and I think it makes it much easier. So it's a constant struggle for me in my company, although I'm extremely active, and it sometimes is kind of pulling the tooth, I guess. So it's really, really challenging, and I know I have to kind of, in some situations, I have to tell my colleagues that, listen, I'm helping you build your brand, because if you're you're a chief technology officer, you're chief financial officer, I think that's the difficult part, and I think, I don't know, are you, most of you who are entrepreneurs, do you see the similar challenge in your company to get everybody? Sometimes I have difficulty even getting their profile updated, so you could see. Do you have any thoughts on that, or something you agree with me that this is a challenging part for businesses? Okay, so that's the challenging part for us, and it's a struggle, and I'm just working on it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Even though our focus is more on the younger demographic, you would think that it'd be so much easier to get them to like a post and get them to share it and get them to retweet it. It's still just as hard, even though we do cater to such an interesting demographic that has a varied amount of stories. So we can do South Asian stuff, we can do South Asian American stuff, we can do just Indian stuff. So even though we have so many different topics we can cover, it's still a challenge to keep your audience engaged on a daily basis. So before I do anything, before emails or text messages, the first thing I do is, what's the social media strategy for today? Because it's on the top of my to-do list every single day, even weekends. And to keep them going and to keep our social media strategy growing is, again, it's definitely a challenge. And I think the best way to do it, and the only way we've been able to do it, is just stay consistent. We've watched our traffic substantially grow because of social media, but at the same time, social media can also hurt your traffic as well. So if maybe 4 or 5 days you don't do as much, you'll see that difference. You'll see less traffic coming to your website. So even if you're doing 2-3 posts a day on Facebook, not necessarily promoting your own brand, but just maybe talking about a news story or talking about a fun new product that's out, make your Facebook post different and engaging so people are not just bombarded by your product or your magazine. And then, same with Twitter. Use it to engage more. That's what we do. We just try to talk to as many people as we can. So we'll even search a random hashtag like brown girl. Of course, that's very pertinent to us. So I'll go see what other South Asian girls are writing in the hashtag brown girl. and it's very likely I'm gonna find interesting stories. Just the other day, I found a girl, she was tweeting about when she was growing up, she didn't have a role model in Disney. Her only role model was Jasmine from Aladdin, and she didn't feel connected to Jasmine because of the way that Jasmine dressed. She said that, and these were all in her tweets. So I reached out to her right away, and I was like, that's interesting. You are a South Asian girl. You were growing up without a role model in Disney. You should have had one. We should have all had role models in Disney. So I reached out to her right away, and she's going to do a story on Brown Girl. So Twitter is definitely great to get people. And then Instagram, like I said, it's that continuous, ongoing, you want to make it picture heavy. So I think for us, it's everyday consistency.
Thank you, and I do think consistency is the key to social media as well, especially with our content strategy at India.com. Consistency is a little hard because our team is a lot smaller, but you do need to be posting quite frequently to keep engaging your audience and to keep getting more of an audience. So thank you for those 2 points. They're excellent. So Shakur, in your spare time, you mentor entrepreneurs and within your different fields. So I think that the next question is very appropriate for you. If you're first starting out, you know, coming out into the social media world with your brand, what strategic points do you think it's important for newcomers to hit?
Well, I guess you want to probably make sure that the first thing is the presence is consistent on all platforms, and I think that's what I normally. In fact, I end up doing a lot of advice to people who are running for office and pushing some causes, so I kind of use Facebook in that sense. So the first thing is to make sure that the content is consistent on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. Everything is together, and you just start saying one thing on Facebook or something on LinkedIn, and then basically look at what they're trying to do. So, I had a situation with one of the community. They were there was a faith community, and they were trying to do some sort of starting a charitable, a social service organization, and they were having difficulty in terms of finding people on Facebook. So I kind of looked at Facebook and see they had some other organizations tied down, and I helped develop. And I asked them, do you really want to reach out to your own community or outside community? So they said, no, we really want to reach out to our same community. So I think then you can go into the groups part on Facebook and target it. So within like 2 weeks, they had 3,000 fans or followers, and a couple of weeks they had like 30,000. So they had to spend some money, and I think it's also coming down. Facebook is trying heavily. 3-4 years ago, you could actually send a message to your people who are your fans or who liked your page, but now it's not there. So obviously they're trying to monetize themselves, and so I think that's what I do. And I think the other part is also. Sometimes what I do is offline part too, because there are people who are not very active, and I do a lot of reading. I don't know how many do. Most of you have how many of you are on Flipboard? You are, right? So I have a big Flipboard. I use that, and a lot of article comes in. So what I do is I try to take those articles and try to do some offline. Post them on my social networks and send them an email or send them a text. Say, hey, I got this thing. So then I know some people who are not. That's the other way you can drive. If you really think that you wouldn't want to send them an email, you want them to come and like the page or be a connections, and that's the strategy I use. It depending on. In fact, we were helping a political party in India last year's election, and I was doing some work on Facebook, and we found out that although in Facebook you can go and target your campaign in Columbia or Silver Spring or in Vienna and Virginia, McLean, there is a big New Delhi is one city, and I was talking to Facebook people. I said, listen, you're missing an opportunity within New Delhi to subdivide into smaller places, and you could the candidates for legislative assembly, and they could target that part. And so I think they've taken that idea from us. And I was talking to a couple of people in at Silicon Valley, and then they connected me with the Facebook director in India, and I think they're slowly incorporating that. So you'll see more happening there too. So that's essentially based on the client. This is how we recommend. If they're a political client, do this. If they're this client, and mostly I don't get hired as a consultant, but I kind of help them and mentor them and give them some insight as a user of social network.
So it depends more so on what your particular mission is, in other words. So you have to formulate your content strategy, your engagement strategy, and your social media strategy with your specific points, but you can use everything that Shakur just said to help you get there as well. So Trisha, what, on a regular day, what would you say is your content strategy, and along with not just content strategy, because obviously that's towards website, your social media strategy on a day-to-day basis? So there's tons of infographics out there. If you Google it, you could see the best times to post on various social media networks so that you'll get the most engagement. Would you say that that's the way to go as well, to follow what the Google recommendations are, or how do you personally get through the day-to-day?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. We do keep in mind of the top, the best times to post on certain networks. So on Facebook for us, we do a little bit of both. We do pay attention to the best times that Facebook proposes. And then we go check our own analytics, and we check when we are getting the most engagement, and then from that engagement, when we're getting the most clicks to our website. So for us, we break the day down. We do our first 2-3 posts before 1 p.m. So we start around 10:30 until 1 p.m. and we spread it out. We do about up to 3. Sometimes if there's a lot of stuff, maybe 4. And the 3 to 4 posts that we do, all of them are going to be something different. One will be maybe a picture and a link. One may be just a video that we upload to Facebook, because uploading videos to Facebook is one of the best ways to get engagement. But if you want to upload a video to Facebook, you have to either own the video or you have to ask permission from the person you're taking the video from to upload it. But uploading videos to your Facebook page is definitely the best way to get engagement. And then the other 2 or 3 is, of course, we do a link that's just a story to the website. And then maybe the 4th post will be a generic news post that's taking us to another website, or sometimes we just write via Times of India or via Hindustan Times. So we don't necessarily put the link because we want to keep the engagement on our page and we don't want them to go away. But we do credit them and say, hey, listen, this is where we got our source from. So we do 3-4 different types of things on Facebook during the day, and then at night from about 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. we do 1 or 2 posts at night. So the 1 or 2 posts at night are usually the second story that we've published. We try to publish at least 2 stories a day. So the first story we've already done in the morning, and then the second story we do at night. And again, we do something fun, something lighthearted at night, unless, again, there's big breaking news. And then for Twitter, mostly what we do is we follow the auto schedule on Hootsuite. So the best way to use Twitter is just to schedule your tweets via Hootsuite, or you can use TweetDeck. There's a ton of things you can do. So essentially, you can just go into Hootsuite, write maybe 4 or 5 tweets for the day, and you just click on auto schedule, and auto schedule will just pop them out at the best times where you'll get the best engagement. What you want to keep in mind, though, is if you're going to be using Hootsuite and if you're scheduling 4 or 5 tweets for the day, and your tweets are about, check out our fun, Desi-styled bridal video, and it's going up at 3 p.m., but God forbid something horrible happened in your community or in your city at 3 p.m., you don't want to be talking about beauty when something horrible has just happened. So you want to keep that in mind. So if we're scheduling something on Hootsuite, I'm very mindful of that. I have it on my phone. If I need to delete a scheduled tweet, I will do it right away. I'm not hesitant to delete tweets at all. I think, the mic is still going. For some reason, I thought it turned off on me. But, and then again, for Instagram, it's the same thing. I mean, definitely picture heavy. And of course, times on Instagram definitely matter. We get a lot more engagement, again, earlier in the morning when people are just getting up and going to work, and then later at night around 8, 9 o'clock. So for Instagram, we try to do 2 to 3 posts. Sometimes we just keep it as 2, so 1 in the morning and 1 at night. So pretty much the strategy overall is that during the day from around 1 to 5 o'clock, everyone is usually caught up with their day-to-day activities. They're not necessarily on Instagram, but before 1 o'clock and after 6, 7 o'clock for us is the best times for us.